Hi, welcome to Craig's Hangar. When I was a new pilot about 30 years ago, I would pore over the Sporties catalogs, and I would pore over the aircraft spruce catalogs, which are like that. And you could go broke just buying things. And I did. I just bought everything. And I couldn't stop buying stuff. And now that I've matured as a pilot, I thought I would just hand down to you my thoughts, stuff you've probably already thought of, but maybe not. And if you're a new pilot, maybe this will be beneficial to you. But these are the things that I think are essential to have if you own an airplane or even rent an airplane. Some of this stuff is important, and some of it doesn't get enough press, and some of it isn't very expensive. I will start with the brave statement that if it doesn't fit on this cart, you don't need it, okay? These are ANR headsets, automatic noise reduction headsets. I was a real holdout for like 20 years on this. I finally bought a used pair. One of the best things I ever bought. Fatigue factor went way down. I love my David Clark's. I've had these things for 30 years. It's an exceptional company, and if I were to buy new ANRs, I'd probably buy David Clark's because of their customer service. But I have to tell you, these Bose have been fantastic. I thought there was something wrong with the airplane when I first put them on because I didn't hear the sounds that I normally hear, and it was just a whole lot quieter. So consider that. Not an essential necessarily, but if you fly a lot, maybe it is essential. Next thing I want to mention, everybody's got a fuel tester. This has a gravity ball in it. They don't make them anymore. I can't find this. This is, again, about probably 25 years old, and it tells you whether or not you have avgas or kerosene or motor, car gas in your tanks. And I remember one time renting an airplane that took MoGas, and the gravity ball floated and wasn't supposed to, and I thought there was something wrong, and then I looked at the color and it was red, and yeah, that's the way it works. I wish they still made these, and leave it in the comments section if you know where to find these things, because I haven't been able to find them. Here's something that everybody has in their car. Hopefully you have it in your airplane. This is just a USB device. Just be advised that when they plug into the cigarette lighter, obviously it's not a piece of TSO'd equipment or anything like that because it's portable, which is great. They're incredibly cheap. You can get them on Amazon, but they all have different wattages, and you might want to check that out too, because some will charge your equipment a lot faster than others. Next in the list, just a reading light. These are red reading lights, rechargeable, that also I found on Amazon that are really cheap and really great. And the cockpit lighting in the Cherokee, it's okay, but these things really round out some of the corners. I do not have a really sophisticated panel that's lit up, backlit with instruments, and this for like 20 bucks takes care of that, and they last a whole long time because they're LED. That may be something that you're interested in. A lot of pilots don't carry these things, and they're CO2 detectors. Mike Bush did a really good webinar on this from Savvy Aviation, and he got my attention on it. You probably have seen some of the ones that are like chemical dots or whatever. Apparently, they're not very effective. This thing goes down to like 10 parts per million or lower, and has an alarm on it, and runs off a couple of AA batteries. Or is this one rechargeable? No, this one runs off the batteries. It'll run forever, and it will tell you at a glance if you have anything going on in the cockpit that could be a problem. These things used to be relatively expensive, and I think this one was like 40 or 50 bucks, unbelievable. So really no reason not to have one of these. Most of you probably fly under 8,000 feet, but these things also, it used to be several $100s just a few years ago, now incredibly inexpensive, and it's just the oxygen meter that fits on your finger. And if you're going on a long flight and you're going to be at altitudes maybe of like 10.5, 11.5 for any period of time, it's just kind of nice to have, because if you're getting into that hypoxia range, you may not know it, and you might feel really, really happy for a while, but it could be a lack of oxygen, so something to have. And along those lines then, I think down here, I tried these. I think they work pretty good. Certainly cheaper than an oxygen bottle to buy. For about 20 or 30 bucks, you can get these things. I have about a 6-pack of them, and I take them to the cross countries that I do to California. When you're up at altitude, if you feel like you just need a little boost, you just do that. It's pure oxygen, fantastic. Just a nice kind of backup to have. Aviation radio. Maybe most guys are carrying one of these around. Most pilots are carrying these around, but they're not very expensive. Again, I've had this one for probably 25 years. It's compact. I've had to use this. I was on a flight one time, actually, when I first bought that airplane, and it was a VFR day, and it was all great. But I was flying from Sacramento down to Bakersfield, and about halfway down, I noticed the radios were getting kind of funny in the airplane. And I didn't really look over at the amp meter, which was at 0. And it turned out that my alternator just exploded in flight, just in fragments. I had no radio, but again, a clear day, not a problem. Pulled this out, has a plug adapter so I could put on my headset. It wasn't the greatest transmission, but I was able to talk to ATC and let them know what was going on, and flew to Bakersfield as a non-event. If you were at night or maybe in poorer weather, could be a major event. So handheld radio is a good thing to have. This is pure gold. These are ADS-B out. I remember being at an AOPA expo, and there was a company that was actually loaning huge pieces of equipment to pilots to test this stuff. 20 years later, you can get things that are this size or this size, and they're gold because they will tell you where other traffic is, assuming the traffic has transponder and all of that with ADS-B out. But it's fantastic to have. It just takes a lot of stress. This is a game changer for me in flying. And I can fly without it, but I'll tell you, it's kind of like safety belts, seat belts. You know, you get used to it, and when you're not on, you feel a little uncomfortable, and that's the way I feel about this stuff. It's magic. This is going to sound silly. A key ring holder or just a flag, something, so that you have a dedicated aircraft keys that are not on with a bunch of other keys, and that's for 2 reasons. Number one, if you have your aircraft keys on with a bunch of other keys, it puts more stress on the key lock on the airplane, the ignition. And it can put weight on it, and it can wear the keys out faster. So it's just good to be able to see these things at a glance. The other thing is, put it up on the dash. If you're anywhere near the prop, pushing the airplane into the hangar or whatever, I always look for this flag up on the dash before I touch a prop. This is a fan that does not go in the cockpit, but I do keep it on the table, and I'll tell you why. If I plug in some of this equipment, particularly this one, on a hot day after it's heated up a little bit, your batteries aren't going to charge because there's usually some kind of thermal protector in them. I put this little portable fan that's AC that just plugs in, and I just set it by the charger and blow it on the equipment. And it cools it off immediately, and it charges properly, and I'm not overheating the batteries. Talking about overheating, if you fly with an iPad, and you would have to, some kind of tablet to fly with one of these, think about investing in one of these. This is a cooling pad. There's a couple of different brands that make them. I can't tell you how many times I've been in a critical phase of flight, including in the pattern or going to a towered airport, and having either the iPad or the iPhone that I was using for some information totally get upset. The little red thermometer comes up on the Apple devices and says, I'm shutting down, I'm all done. Good night, ladies and gentlemen. It's not a good time sometimes to have that happen if you need it for something. I have found that even on the hottest days, this thing doesn't make any noise. Of course, it doesn't matter in the cockpit, but it is amazing. It runs off batteries, or you can plug it into a cigarette lighter. Fantastic, keeps the equipment cool, and gives you longevity on your tablets. One of the most expensive things on the table is this. And these are navigational databases. And my subscription with Garmin is about $500 a year. So even though it's the smallest thing on the table, I think it's pretty close with the exception of the Bose headphones. This is the most expensive thing on the table. But if you're going to have good navigation equipment that you've purchased and you put in the panel, it doesn't make any sense that the navigation equipment isn't current or you can't use it legally for IFR. And it's also really helpful for VFR. So think about keeping your subscriptions current on this, even though I know it kind of a little bit of a, it hurts a little bit. And particularly if you have a subscription, you kind of get hit twice, because I have a Garmin subscription for Pilot on this as well. I know that, what's the one you use, 4Flight? 4Flight's fantastic too, but none of the stuff's cheap, and it's worth its weight in gold. So I just prioritize what I'm going to spend my money on. This is cheap. Keep plenty of water on board. You can really get dehydrated on a long flight. I did once in California, and when I got there, was not feeling good and had to get some medical attention, even because I just got too dehydrated. So always have enough bottled water for your passengers and yourself. If you were ever to make a forced landing someplace, particularly high up in the mountains, carry a blanket, carry some pillows, something. But a blanket's probably the best, because it can serve you 2 purposes. Number one, if you are out in the wilderness or something, even if you took off on a hot day like this, you had to land at an elevation, it could be really cold. That'll protect you. Second thing, in the event, and God forbid, you do an off-airport landing, you grab one of these, particularly if you don't have, and I need to do this with my airplane with some shoulder harnesses on, but this is something you put in front of your face so that if you do have an impact, it's not going to impact your face. So think about having this handy in the back seat. One other thing, sunshades. I made these out of SUV sunshades. I think I had to buy 2 packages of them, but for under $50, I cut them out on a stencil and I put them on the airplane. And particularly here in Texas, North Texas, it gets hot out. If I go somewhere, even if I'm out of the plane for a half an hour, it can heat up unbelievably. It's not good on the equipment, the interior of the plane. Put these on the inside, you would be amazed how much cooler this is. It must drop the temperature down 20 degrees. So, and they're fun to make, and they're not expensive. So consider doing that, and if you want to buy some, I know there are companies that sell them for several $100s pre-made for different aircraft models, but I think these are great. I think I've covered just about everything here except for one thing, which is definitely a nice to have, and that would be this. And this is not a commercial for this company because I'm not even going to tell you who the company is. But there are several companies that make these ice chests that have fans and radiators in them and is basically portable air conditioning. And although it's a real pain to fill it full of ice, put water in it, put it in the back seat, they're heavy. I got to tell you, on a hot Texas day, you can go flying when others can't, and this will cool you off in the cockpit. And I think like 10 pounds of ice in this is probably good for between 30 and 45 minutes. And then I think this one holds 30. So this will probably be good for 2 to 3 hours, and I've used it a lot. My friend down here, Jason, actually built his own using 3D printing. And he did a really good job. I was amazed. But if you want to make your own or you want to buy one, I would look into it if you're in a hot climate, because it can make all the difference if you don't have air conditioner in your airplane. So am I forgetting anything? No, I think I've covered it all. That's it for Craig's Hangar. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.